Over a lifetime of watching money move through hands, markets, and generations, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are trapped because they repeat the same quiet mistakes without ever questioning them. They work harder, earn more, and stay just as anxious, wondering why progress always feels just out of reach. Money, you see, is a very honest mirror. It reflects discipline, patience, fear, and impulse with perfect accuracy. What follows is not about getting rich quickly or chasing clever tricks. Those ideas come and go with every season. This is about understanding why some people build lasting security, while others spend their entire lives running faster just to stay in the same place. It is about seeing money not as a reward but as a responsibility, not as a way to impress but as a way to protect your future self. I have seen fortunes made and lost, often by people just as smart as each other. The difference was never intelligence, it was behavior, the quiet decisions made when no one was watching, the ability to wait, the courage to say no. If you listen closely, this is not a lesson about money at all. It is a lesson about freedom and how easily it is traded away without ever realizing the cost. When people hear the word wealth, most of them think about income, numbers, and how much money flows into their hands each month. But after a lifetime of watching money come and go, I can tell you that income is only the surface of the story, and often it is the most misleading part. I have seen people earn more in a year than others earn in a decade, yet live with constant pressure, fear, and obligation, while others with far less lived calmly, made choices freely, and slept well at night. The difference was never the size of the paycheck. The difference was control. True wealth is not what you earn. It is how much control you have over your time, your decisions, and your life. Income is active. It demands your presence. It asks for your energy, your attention, your health. The moment you stop showing up, it usually stops showing up too. Wealth, on the other hand, is patient. It does not shout. It does not rush you. It quietly gives you options. When you have wealth, you can choose how to spend your day, who you spend it with, and what problems you are willing to tolerate. When you only have income, your choices shrink. You say yes not because you want to, but because you have to. Most people never notice when they trade control for comfort. It happens slowly. A bigger expense here, a longer commitment there. Each decision feels harmless on its own, even reasonable. But together they form a cage made of monthly payments and expectations. Suddenly walking away is no longer an option. Suddenly time belongs to someone else. This is how high income can still lead to a small life. I have learned that the richest position a person can hold is not a job title or a salary bracket, but the ability to say no without fear, no to work that drains you, no to pressure that compromises your values, no to urgency that serves someone else's priorities. That kind of power does not come from earning more, it comes from needing less and preparing patiently. Wealth gives you space between a problem and your reaction. It gives you room to think. It gives you the luxury of patience. Income alone does not do that. In fact, higher income without discipline often increases anxiety because the lifestyle it supports must be defended every single month. Control disappears the moment your expenses demand your obedience. Over time, you begin to understand that money is not meant to impress others, but to protect your future self. Real wealth allows you to live at your own pace, not the pace of bills, trends, or expectations. When you finally see this clearly, your focus shifts. You stop asking how much you can make and start asking how much freedom you can keep. And that question, quietly answered over years, changes everything. I have watched many people climb the ladder of income with great effort, only to discover that the ladder itself was leaning against the wrong wall. And most of the time, the problem was not how much they earned, but how much their life demanded from them as their income grew. Lifestyle inflation does not arrive with drama or warning. It comes quietly, dressed as reward, progress, and comfort. You tell yourself you deserve a little more because you worked hard, and you are not wrong, but what you do not see yet is how quickly a little more turns into a permanent requirement. At first, higher spending feels like relief. A better car makes the commute easier. A larger home feels like success. Nicer habits feel like growth. But expenses have a strange habit of settling in and refusing to leave. What once felt optional soon feels necessary. And now your income is no longer a tool, it is a leash. You cannot slow down, you cannot step back, and you cannot take risks, because too much depends on you continuing exactly as you are. I have seen people with impressive earnings live with constant tension because every month must be perfect. One interruption, one mistake, one pause, and the entire structure begins to shake. That is not wealth. That is a fragile arrangement that looks strong from the outside. True freedom needs margin. It needs space between what you earn and what you spend. Lifestyle inflation destroys that space without you ever noticing it happening. Those who understand this early learn to keep their lives simpler than their income allows, not because they fear enjoyment, but because they value flexibility. Simplicity creates options. When your costs are low, your time becomes lighter. You can walk away from bad situations. You can wait for better opportunities. You can make decisions based on long-term thinking instead of short-term pressure. That is a quiet power few. Talk about the danger of lifestyle inflation is not the spending itself, but the loss of choice it creates. Each upgrade demands maintenance. Each commitment asks for future income. And soon your past decisions are negotiating your future on your behalf. The more you need, the more trapped you become. The less you need, the more control you regain. With age, you start to see that happiness does not rise in a straight line with expenses. Comfort levels off quickly, but stress does not. Many of the things people chase for, satisfaction, bring only temporary pleasure and long-term responsibility. Meanwhile, the peace that comes from knowing you can survive on less stays with you. In the end, avoiding lifestyle inflation is not about denying yourself a good life. It is about choosing a life that serves you instead of one you must constantly serve. And once you understand that, you stop trying to look successful and start building something far more valuable, a life that can breathe. Over many years, I have learned that most fortunes are not destroyed by bad luck, but by a single careless decision made in a moment of excitement, fear, or overconfidence. People love to talk about how to make money, how to find the next big opportunity, how to move faster and earn more, but very few talk about the quiet discipline of avoiding mistakes. And yet, it is this discipline that separates those who last from those who rise quickly and fall just as fast. Money grows slowly and disappears quickly. That is a truth you only fully understand after watching it happen more than once. A decade of patience can be undone by one impulsive move. one gamble taken with money that represented years of effort. I have seen intelligent people lose everything, not because they lacked skill, but because they ignored risk. They believed progress required constant action, when sometimes the smartest move is to do nothing at all. Chasing money is exciting. It feeds the ego. It makes good stories. Avoiding mistakes is quiet and often boring. No one applauds you for not losing money. No one notices the risks you chose not to take. But over time, the person who protects what they have steadily pulls ahead of the one who is always swinging for more. Survival comes before growth. Stability comes before expansion. These are not glamorous ideas, but they are durable ones. The biggest financial mistakes usually come from same place. Greed convinces you that this time is different. Fear convinces you that you must act now or be left behind. Both push you into decisions that ignore your limits. When you forget how hard your money was to earn, you treat it lightly. When you remember that each dollar represents hours, stress, and sacrifice, you become careful. Those who understand this focus on downside first. They ask what could go wrong before asking how much they could gain. They do not put themselves in positions where one decision can ruin them. They avoid unnecessary leverage. They keep room to recover. This mindset does not slow progress. It ensures that progress continues. With time, you begin to see that wealth is not built by brilliance, but by endurance. The goal is not to be right all the time, but to stay in the game long enough for patience to be rewarded. You do not need perfect timing. You need the ability to withstand mistakes without being wiped out. Avoiding financial mistakes is an act of respect for your future self. It is choosing caution over ego, restraint over excitement, and consistency over drama. When you protect your downside, your upside takes care of itself. And in the long run, the quiet path of avoiding loss often leads further than the noisy chase for more ever could. After a lifetime of watching money pass through many hands, I can tell you that emotional spending is one of the most common reasons people remain stuck, even when they earn well. It rarely feels like a mistake in the moment. It feels justified. You are tired, stressed, overlooked, or insecure, and spending promises relief. For a brief moment, it works. Then the feeling fades, and what remains is the obligation you created while trying to escape a feeling you never addressed. Money spent to manage emotions is never really about the object. It is about how you want to feel or how you want to be seen. People buy confidence, respect, belonging, and identity without realizing that money cannot hold those things for long. The problem is not wanting nice things. The problem is believing those things will change how you feel about yourself. They rarely do. Instead, they demand maintenance, attention, and comparison, all of which quietly drain peace. Status symbols are especially dangerous because they invite comparison into your life. The moment you measure yourself by appearances, you enter a race with no finish line. There is always someone with something newer, bigger, or more expensive. And now your spending is no longer guided by your values, but by other people's opinions. That is a costly trade. I have seen people with impressive possessions live under constant financial pressure, afraid to slow down because their image depends on it. The wealthy observer learns to pause before spending, not because they are cheap, but because they are curious. They ask themselves why they want something. Is it useful or is it emotional? Will it still matter next year or only today? Most emotional purchases cannot survive these questions. They belong to the moment, not the future. Assets behave differently from status symbols. They do not announce themselves. They do not flatter the ego. They simply work. They grow quietly over time, often unnoticed by others, but deeply felt by the person who owns them. Appearances consume money. Assets multiply it. One feeds pride, the other feeds freedom. When you stop trying to impress, money changes its role in your life. It becomes a tool instead of a mirror. You no longer ask what a purchase says about you. You ask what it gives back to you: peace, stability, options. These are returns you cannot show off, but they are the ones that matter. Over the years, you begin to see that the strongest financial position is not having the most, but needing the least validation. When emotions no longer control your spending, your future stops being negotiated by your past impulses. And in that quiet shift, money finally starts doing what it was meant to do: support your life, not define it. With enough years behind you, patterns become impossible to ignore, and one of the clearest patterns I have seen is how often people lose their way by trying to make money exciting. They are drawn to complexity because it feels intelligent, to speed because it feels powerful, and to constant action because it feels productive. But money does not reward drama. It rewards calm. It rewards those who can remain steady while others are pulled apart by fear and greed. Fear and greed are loud emotions. Fear tells you that everything you have built is about to disappear, that you must protect it at all costs, that waiting is dangerous. Greed tells you the opposite, that opportunity is slipping away, that you must act now, that this is your moment. Both feel urgent, both demand action, and both are responsible for more financial damage than ignorance ever was. Simple, boring consistency rarely feels impressive in the moment. It does not give you stories to tell. It does not make you feel clever. It asks you to show up again and again, to do the same sensible thing, whether the world is excited or terrified. Most people struggle with this because the human mind craves stimulation. But wealth is built in the quiet spaces where nothing dramatic seems to be happening. Over time, you begin to understand that complexity is often a disguise for uncertainty. When someone truly understands what they are doing, they can explain it simply. The same applies to investing and money decisions. The more complicated something sounds, the more room there is for mistakes, misunderstanding, and emotional reactions. Simple. Approaches survive because they leave less room for error. Consistency allows time to do its work. Time is patient, but it is also unforgiving to those who interrupt it. Fear causes people to pull back just when patience is required. Greed causes them to rush in when restraint would protect them. In both cases, the mistake is not the market or the opportunity, but the emotional reaction to it. Those who last learn to detach emotion from decision-making. They accept that there will be dull periods, uncomfortable periods, and uncertain periods. They do not constantly adjust their path in response to every headline or mood swing. They trust the process because it is grounded in reason, not excitement. I have seen people with great intelligence lose ground because they could not sit still. I have seen ordinary people build remarkable security because they stayed consistent. Talent and luck can give you a head start, but they cannot replace patience. Compounding only works when it is left alone. In the end, simple consistency is not about settling for less. It is about respecting reality. Money grows when it is treated with discipline, humility, and time. When you remove fear from losses and greed from gains, decisions become clearer. And when decisions are calm, progress becomes inevitable. That quiet inevitability is where real wealth is built. As the years pass, you begin to notice a strange truth that most people never stop to question, that the harder they chase more, the less free they seem to become. They believe freedom lives at the top of a higher income, a bigger number, or the next level of success, but what I have seen time and again is that freedom has very little to do with earning more, and everything to do with needing less. The moment your happiness depends on constant growth, you place yourself in a position where peace is always postponed. Needy. NG less is not about deprivation, it is about clarity. When your needs are simple, your mind becomes quieter. You are no longer negotiating every decision with fear. You are no longer forced to say yes to things that drain you just to maintain a standard you never truly chose. The fewer things you require to feel secure, the more power you hold over your own life. Small daily choices are the architects of this freedom. People look for life-changing moments, but lives are rarely changed in a single day. They are shaped slowly by habits that seem too small to matter. How you respond to temptation, how often you choose convenience over intention, how you treat money when no one is watching. Each choice writes a line in your future, and those lines add up whether you pay attention or not. Saying no is one of the most misunderstood skills in life. In the moment, it feels like loss. You skip the purchase, delay the upgrade, resist the impulse. It can feel restrictive. But what you are really doing is buying options. You are purchasing time, flexibility, and peace with a decision that no one else will applaud. Every unnecessary yes becomes a quiet obligation later. Every thoughtful no becomes breathing room. I have watched people trap themselves with comforts they thought they earned, bigger homes they had to protect, higher expenses they had to feed, commitments that removed their ability to pause. Meanwhile, those who kept their needs modest moved through life with calm confidence. They could walk away, they could wait, they could choose. Financial freedom does not arrive loudly. It shows up quietly when you realize you are no longer anxious about the next month, when you know you can adapt, when money stops dictating your behavior. That freedom is not built through dramatic sacrifice, but through consistent restraint. Over time, you come to respect the power of enough. Enough removes urgency. Enough creates dignity. Enough allows you to live on your terms instead of chasing someone else's definition of success. When you stop measuring life by accumulation and start measuring it by control, everything shifts. In the end, the richest people I have known were not those who earned the most, but those who needed the least to feel whole. Their lives moved slowly, intentionally, and without panic. And that quiet steadiness, built one small decision at a time, was their greatest wealth.